Okay, well, I'll get a start on then. So what I sent out last week and then updated today follows the same model we've been following since the beginning of Bylaws Committee. So basically, what I sent out only includes changes proposed since the last meeting, and only the red text is what is the proposed new text. So it's only one page this time, so hopefully we can work through this and actually get the feedback, and a new draft can be produced if there are proposed changes in time for the January board meeting, so we can vote on this and have some bylaws that are more current than the year 2000. Okay, is everybody ready? Should I just start motoring through this?
Let's go ahead and go.
Proceed.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that quite.
No, so you can go ahead. You can go ahead, Carla.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so in the last meeting, the participants asked for clarification between the role of corresponding secretary and recording secretary. So I added those in, and we should take a closer look when we get to that section, because George, you did raise some valid points about my definitions were not quite as reciprocal as I'd meant them to be. I'd meant for the corresponding secretary and the recording secretary to be able to cover each other. But you pointed out that that's not how the language read. But anyway, starting from the top, we're introducing a split in the secretary role between a corresponding secretary, a recording secretary, and then I received a request to add the role of parliamentarian. So then, okay, again, in Article 5, Section 1, I think in various conversations throughout the day, not top secret conversations, but just people looking for clarification, it was determined that you cannot have an officer who is appointed. Either the new officer, the parliamentarian, can be appointed, but then cannot sit on the executive committee, or it has to be elected. So I'm inviting feedback on that point. What is the prevailing opinion on?
But where did the parliamentarian? You said you got a call about adding the parliamentarian. Not a call. I don't want to put words in your mouth. That you had a conversation. Is that within committee? Because I don't recall, and I looked at the last video. We had conversations 2 meetings ago about parliamentarian and what we were thinking about it, but I don't see in any of the minutes where we were going to add this as an executive officer position.
Actually,
No, I can talk to that, board member. So back off. So that was, she had a conversation with me, George, and so it was an idea that I had, and it's something that I wanted to have the vice chair of this committee bring to the committee before we bring to the board. So it was a conversation that she had with me, and so that's where the conversation came from. And so I think, with that being said, I think the way that we can do, because I think we need a parliamentarian, because I look at even in my fraternity, we have a parliamentarian. So as the clarity that Carla is talking about, came from not only doing things in the way we do in the fraternity, but others as well. So I think what I want, because I want to rely on Mr. Stricker for sometimes when I do not follow parliamentary procedure, what I would like to do is have that position, but then not have it it depends on what the committee wants to do, but if the committee decides that it should not be elected, which is fine by me, then I can just make that appointment. But then again, the parliamentary will not sit on the executive officer. So that way the executive officers can be the chairperson of the board, first vice chairperson, second vice chairperson, the corresponding secretary, which is what Ms. Benitez is right now. Well, she's a secretary, but then of course that will be her role. The recording secretary, which of course is what Carla does, and then the treasurer, which of course is Tolene. So those are the officers that have to be voted on. So with the parliamentarian was, I guess, in my mind, I'm thinking that, we need, somebody to help with parliamentary procedure. And so as I thought about it and in further conversations that I've had with not just board members, but with others, I think the best way to go forward is to have the parliamentarian sit outside of the executive, the executive board, or not a board officer. But then, as I said, because can still correct myself or others if we are not following proper parliamentary procedure. And I think that's the best way to move forward. And that way, that would eliminate any confusion as it pertains to that part of the bylaws.
Actually, right now, Michael, I am the parliamentarian, so
Right.
whether I sit on the executive board or not is irrelevant to myself.
Right. I mean, that's just I just thought that it was just something that that's fine, Mr. Strick. I mean, that's just something that because I talked to you about it as well. So that's where the conversation comes from. And like I said, it wasn't done in secret or anything of the sort, and it was done with a conversation between two board members. And so that's where it came from.
I actually think it's a great idea.
Okay,
What's that?
and I'm sorry, did I interrupt someone?
No, I was just saying that this is John Isaac. I actually think it's a great idea because if we don't pass motions the correct way, we open ourselves for legal action or anything like that.
Exactly. And that's why I thought about it being on the executive board. Just if we have it on the executive board, then of course, obviously, then it would have to be elected.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so I also just want to add to that just putting it in the draft does not at all mean we, as the bylaws committee, we're attempting to push this through. The whole idea, the way I learned to draft contracts is you just do brain dump and then you cross things out. It's easier that way than trying to remember what you didn't think to put in the first place. So, okay, just talk me through this. So we're going to say a corresponding secretary, a recording secretary, a treasurer, and a parliamentarian. And then at the end of that paragraph, each officer shall be an appointed member of the board. Election of the officers shall take place each year at a meeting of the board, with the exception of the parliamentarian who shall be appointed by the board chairperson. So now I just need to insert somewhere that the parliamentarian will not be an executive committee member. And I think that goes below, but let's talk through the rest of this, and then all of you, please jump in and let me know what you think. So Section 9, this is where there was some draft language separating the corresponding and recording secretary responsibilities. The corresponding secretary shall maintain the records of the board, including reports, communications, and attendance. In addition, the corresponding secretary shall have such powers, this is the usual, as the chairperson asks the secretary to do. Then we go on to the recording secretary shall record and report the minutes at the regular monthly meeting and aid the corresponding secretary in any manner deemed necessary. And then again, the usual line, and anything else the chairperson tells that person to do. And George, I know you pointed out that there was an issue with that language in terms of my intention was that the two roles would cover for each other. Can you point me to the line where I missed that boat?
No, it's not this exists within the section 5 of our officers. So for example, this is section 5 and you're on section 9, which is the secretary.
Right.
So
This document only includes anything that was changed. Okay, so section 5. Okay, let me go see what the original was. If there wasn't any suggested change to it,
well, no. My point is, section 9 is the secretary. You wanted to create two positions. So there's the corresponding secretary and the recording secretary. So you take the language, you're going to create a section 9, and then you're going to create a section 10 by creating two different positions.
Okay, so
but
I kind of cheated by.
Yeah, you're making one subservient to the other.
Okay. I didn't follow what you were saying earlier.
They have two distinct responsibilities. I mean, that was my understanding from the conversation before, is that the recording secretary does X and the corresponding secretary does X. Those should be their responsibilities. And then, whatever which way they want to assist. I mean, every board member should assist other board members. Section 10 is the treasurer. The only thing I'll point out on the parliamentarian, there is no other position that is defined in our bylaws other than officers. So if the creation of a parliamentarian that's going to be appointed, I mean, first of all, it's problematic that the chairperson would be appointing the parliamentarian, especially if the parliamentarian's role is to make sure that we're doing everything the right way. And the reason for that is no other city agency does that. The NYPD does not pick the CCRB. So, somebody else should be picking it. Secondly, it's an executive, it's in the whole officer's provision. So section 1 says the officers of the board and then defines each of these. So I don't know if we change that, but we're going to have to add that language, Carla, to the section 1, which is where it says secretary, just, define it into two different roles. But that's the only thing I was pointing out. Like each position you're creating, including the parliamentarian, if you're creating a parliamentarian position, that's going to be section 11. And section 11 is going to say blah, blah, blah. And that's the thing.
Okay,
and then it's going to be, go ahead.
That the parliamentarian doesn't belong in this section at all because it's not an officer.
Well, then that's the question. The question becomes, where do we have this? Yeah, where does it go? Now, again, the chairperson is bestowed certain rights. He can create committees or ad hoc committees as he sees fit. He cannot create committees or get rid of committees because, again, committees are defined in the next section, section 6, which defines all of our committees.
Right.
So, again, I mean, I'm not saying there's no need for any of these things. Again, my whole purpose, and again, it's not a question of being done in secret, but it is being done in secret if nobody's aware of it, and this is the first time that we're hearing it. So if the conversation is that you feel, Michael, like we need a parliamentarian, then you need to raise the issue within committee and say why you feel you need the parliamentarian, which you did. So now we're trying to figure out how do we best work that into the bylaws so that we're on the up and up on this. And that's what we're trying to do right now. My opinion is if you're creating a position, then if you're sticking it in the officers section, then that person, by the very nature of our section 5, is an executive officer. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're not doing that, if you're creating, there's nothing that says you can't do this, Michael, but there's nothing that says you can do this. So, what do we do with this position?
Okay, so while you were going through that, I flipped through the pages of our ancient 2000 bylaws, and I see under Article 4, Hearings and Meetings, Section 9, the procedure followed at all meetings shall be in accordance with the requirements of the Charter, the Uniform Land Use Review Procedure, and these bylaws, and when no contrary provision exists, Robert Rules of Order. The board, however, shall have the power to adopt any rules of procedure not inconsistent with the Charter, the Uniform Land Review Procedure, or the bylaws. So can I shoehorn it in there, do you think? In addition, there will be, you know, whatever. I try not to make up language on the fly, but in addition, the chairman may appoint, chairperson, sorry, I'm writing this down, may appoint a parliamentarian to assist with whatever I said in the other document that just fell on the floor. Oh, hold on. So I can move, okay, here we go. So move that whole, the parliamentarian shall assist the chairperson in managing meetings and shall advise. So I'm thinking it will fit in Article 4, Section 9, and I realize probably not everybody has this in front of them. It's just I put it in a binder so I could whip it open on demand. So the definition of the parliamentarian can go under Article 4, Section 9. In addition, the chairperson may appoint a parliamentarian to assist with running of meetings, blah, blah, blah. How does that sound to everyone present?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I've been a parliamentarian since Father Gorman's days, so, you know.
Okay. Dr. Burke?
No, I'm fine with it. I was doing some homework as you were reading that, and I'm just, making sure that I wasn't going crazy. And I'm just looking where it says some parliamentarians are officers of the board in which, or the assembly in which they serve. And so, in essence, as I said, and to your point in the language, the primary duty of the parliamentarian is to advise the presiding officer on questions of parliamentary law and matters of procedures. Now, one person I would like to bring in on this discussion, of course, is our resident attorney, to make certain that I'm not going crazy.
Oh, Mr. Singh?
Yeah, hi. No. I'm also trying to follow this, and I think I need to study it a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you can move on to something else, and we can probably circle back to this.
Okay. So,
may I ask a question?
Oh, you know what?
Hang on for a second, Carl. You got a question Carl, you got a question from the body. He's a constituent of ours.
All right.
Feel
free. Sure. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I was wondering, do you intend the parliamentarian to be a voting member of the board or whatever committee they sit on? I'm just curious.
Well, the
parliamentarian is a board member.
Okay, so they can vote.
Or he's a board member.
Okay.
Right. So to answer your question, Luke, all board officers can vote. So in certain cases, like the presiding officer normally doesn't vote unless there's a tie. That's not the case with community boards, right? So all the executive officers are members of the board, and so they can vote. There's only one, what we're proposing, Luke, is that there's only one parliamentarian for the entire board, right? Mm-hmm. So there won't be a parliamentarian for each committee, right? Because between the committee chairs and the vice chairs, they should be able to handle that. But in the event that So let me go back. So yeah, that hopefully that'll answer your question. So all board members, whether they be an officer or not, has at least one vote.
Got it. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Right. So I see the role of parliamentarian as sort of an internal consultant, where if I get tied up in something in a committee meeting and I don't know how to handle the motion, whatever, I can refer it to the parliamentarian and say, you know, how do I handle this vote? How do I handle framing this motion?
Is there a so Carla, you raised a very excellent point.
Uh-huh.
The question is this person going to, so to Michael's point, you want to appoint somebody, but theoretically you would appoint somebody who actually has knowledge of this information and can do so, and, you know, is going to be agreed to by the whole body. I'm not saying that person doesn't exist, but I'm just, because if you open this up to election, then theoretically whoever's the most popular gets the nod, and they may not necessarily have the knowledge to weigh in on this. I mean, for example, we just had our executive meeting where I've raised some issues, and I've raised issues that still have been ignored. So are you now stating that if we have a parliamentarian, that they're the be all and end all on these conversations?
I don't think so.
Well, then what is the role of the parliamentarian if not to set the record straight?
Can I just cut in here for a minute?
Go ahead, Carl.
Most of the times when I interrupt the meeting is when the chairman or somebody else proposes a motion to the floor and they do it incorrectly. And I say, you can't do that way. It has to be done this way. So if anything's questioned down the road, we did it the right way. So there's no say, well, they didn't vote the correct way, so it's not a good vote. And that happens a lot. That happened a lot under another administration, not the present one, where he would, just make a motion and say, okay, approve. No, you didn't. First of all, you didn't approve the committee's recommendation. There's a procedure how to do it, and I used to get into issues with him after the meeting. Tell him you can't do it that way. That's against the law. It's gonna. If somebody takes us to court, we're gonna lose because it wasn't done the right way.
Yeah,
right.
That is an excellent point.
Procedural issues. Yeah. Sure. I'm sorry. Who's speaking?
This is Harry Singh.
Okay.
And this comes back to something George raised. Is the parliamentarian an appointed position, appointed by the chairman, or is this an elected position?
Well, we haven't decided here.
Okay. So that was part of the debate this evening. Is it appointed or elected? Because we tried to do both and say the parliamentarian will be a board, an executive committee member, but appointed. And I understand that can't be done. It has to be one or the other. So we're
no. It depends on how the bylaws are worded, right? So if the bylaw says that the parliamentarian is appointed, it has to be written in the bylaws, right? So it has to be written that. But the way, as I said, I understand it, they can't sit on the executive board, right? They're not an executive officer, I should say. So that's if it's appointed. If it's elected, then it's open to everybody. But now, and that's, George makes an excellent point, is that you don't want somebody, the idea of being a parliamentarian is you don't want somebody that doesn't have any parliamentary experience to sit there and run to be a parliamentarian, right? I mean, that defeats the purpose of having, the parliamentarian.
So I would say that we can create the parliamentarian. That definition of that position should not be in Article 5, which lists the executive officers.
Correct.
Right. So I think I said earlier, I found a place in
Hearings and meetings, yeah, Section 9 of hearings and
Article
meetings.
4. Wait,
Oh, 4?
Article 4. Wait, let me find that page again. I have so many papers on my desk now because.
No, it was Section 9, Carla, of Article 4. The procedure followed at all meetings shall be in accordance with the requirements of the Charter, the ULURP, and the bylaws, and no contrary provision exists, Robert's Rules of Order.
Right, that's where I penciled it in, yes. And then move the whole definition of the parliamentarian to that section as well.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, like I said, there's nothing in the bylaws that says we can't do this, but there's nothing in the bylaws that says we should do this. The only thing I'll say is Jeremy Warnicki of Community Board 11, who's the district manager over there, created a chart of all the executive officer positions. So the parliamentarian position exists in other community boards as an elective position, but it also doesn't exist as a position. So, we have a choice here.
In that case, I think we can simply say there shall be a parliamentarian appointed by the chairman of the board, and then we can go on to say if we want him to consult with the executive committee or not, or he can just make an appointed or make an appointment. I was going to say, George, if the case is that there's nothing that says we can or cannot do, then the option is ours. We can go ahead and do it, and we can do it whichever way we want.
Can we define that position within Article 5 of can we create like a section? And I just noticed that there's 2 Section 10s here, one for the treasurer, and then it says all other officers. What would be Section 11 says all other officers shall have the powers and perform such duties as may be assigned to them by the chairperson or the board. Can we create a Section 12 where we define this position?
I think it's cleaner if we create a Section 12.
Yeah. Where you
Okay, wait.
Position.
Okay. I thought a couple of minutes ago we said it's going to go in Article 4. No? Did I miss something?
And well, the reason Carl, the only reason I would say that Article 4, I don't know, I'm not going to say it doesn't have bearing. It's just that it's on hearings and meetings. And I can understand that but we're actually creating a position. We're not, like everything else is about procedure. Right. Am I mistaken? I'm reading all of Article 4 now. It's everything there is procedure. It's, it's voting, Robert's Rules of Order, attendance, minutes.
George?
Emergency meetings, yeah.
George.
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, could we reference another community board's bylaws?
We can copy it. I don't know if we should reference them, but we can copy it.
Just looking at what I actually did a search on community board with parliamentarians, and community board number 2 in Manhattan has a parliamentarian, and it's simply under the duties of the chair.
Okay. Can you read it to us?
Yeah, it just says the term chair is used in these bylaws to describe the presiding officer of the board. Any individual elected to the office may not style him or herself by other terms. The rules shall apply to the first vice chair and second vice chair. And it says plain, the chair may appoint a parliamentarian if he or she chooses. That's it.
Okay.
Could do like
sorry, John. That's Manhattan CB2?
Yeah, I could actually clip it and show you.
Yeah,
okay, you're very good at that, John. I thank you for doing all that research.
Carla, just 1 second. George, you said sure. CB11, Bronx CB11 also has a parliamentarian?
No, I said Jeremy, the district manager, did a survey of all the community boards to find out all their executive offices because I think they're exploring adding a parliamentarian as well, or they may. I have my hands busy with this, so I don't know what every community board has, but I know that Jeremy put it together.
Okay, so I'll join John and do a quick search as well. I'll plug something in and see what I come up with, just so we can compare language and see which language seems to be the best that works for us, and also placement where it's placed in the bylaws.
Okay.
And once I find the email from Jeremy, I'll send it to Ursula so she can send it to the board.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, so here we go.
Okay.
Community Board 6 is the only community board in the Bronx that has a parliamentarian. Community Board number 3 and Community Board number 11 don't have parliamentarians, but they have sergeant at arms.
You'd mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah, so Brooklyn, 1, 2, 3. 3 community boards in Brooklyn have parliamentarians. There are 18 community boards in Brooklyn. Only 3 of them have parliamentarians. That's Community Board 4, 5, and 16. That's Brooklyn. Queens, only 1 community board has a parliamentarian. That's Community Board 12 in Queens. And in Manhattan, 2 community boards, Community Board 2 and Community Board 10 have. Well, no, Community Board 2 does not have a parliamentarian. I guess it just states that in the bylaws that they can create one, but Community Board 10 in Manhattan has a parliamentarian, and Staten Island, only Community Board number 1 has a parliamentarian.
Hey, George. George?
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually went to a training to become a parliamentarian, and the gentleman that was doing the training, I could actually put you on with him, but I think you have to have some kind of like training and go to take some kind of test, you were saying, to be considered a parliamentarian.
Well, that's to become a certified parliamentarian.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, right. It's like you can be a project manager but not have a certification. So if you know your stuff, you can be a parliamentarian but just not have the certification.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Carl is absolutely right. Yeah, like you can have. I mean, listen, John. A lot of this stuff is in title. And it just depends on how seriously we take these titles that we assign to each other. But I think, Dr. Burke's point that, like, it's probably better for us if we appoint somebody, but we want to appoint somebody that actually has knowledge about parliamentary roles. So you're absolutely right. It would behoove us that if we chose somebody, that we'd probably send them the training on, like, being an expert on our bylaws. And not only just our bylaws, but the open meetings law, the state constitution. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that gets rolled into that.
All right. And don't get me started on the whole secretary training. Okay. So in most sections of the bylaws, it says blah, blah, shall. But do we want to say here, in addition, the chairperson may appoint a parliamentarian to assist with the
doing the meeting right.
Okay, yes, that's the short version, Carl. Shall assist the chairperson in managing meetings and shall advise the board chairperson and all committee chairpersons on community board and parliamentary procedures as needed. For somebody who doesn't have 40 years of experience doing this, we may want to require a certification. But if somebody already has done the time, I don't see the value in requiring somebody to go and prove they know what they've been doing for 40 years. Do you know what I...
Carla, do you mind if I play around with some words and see what I can come up with? I'll drop it in the chat.
Okay, sure. I have my pencil right here. Okay. Let me go back. But I have so many documents and folders over, I'm knocking stuff off the desk. Okay.
So John put this stuff in the chat.
Yeah, I
From-
found, George, I
Yeah.
found something really good. It says, does your board meeting need a parliamentarian? Listen to this one. Does your board meeting need a parliamentarian? I am
Yeah.
attorney certified professional parliamentarian, professional registered parliamentarian, past president of the American College of Parliamentary Lawyers, and author of 2 books on meeting procedures. A parliamentarian is simply an advisor to the presiding officer of other officers, committees, and members on matters of meeting procedure. And we could actually put that term in there.
But that sounds like a consultant.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's so to John's point, when he put this in the chat, and I know Harry's going to play with some language, so that we'll be better off for that. But it says here in bullet number 20, the chair may appoint a parliamentarian if he or she chooses. That may cover us, because the question becomes: do we, this community board Manhattan 2 has, they have 20 points on their definition for their chair, whereas our definition for our chair is literally four sentences. Yeah. So, oh no, the chairperson, I'm sorry, it's even less. It's one long sentence. It's one run-on sentence. And that may be purposeful because, we don't have these definitions and therefore we give wide latitude to our chair. Do we want to continue that way, or do we want to sort of put them in a box where we have 20 different bullets?
So what I put there is pretty generic, and it's deliberate. It says, I think John dropped something after.
Yeah.
The chairperson may appoint a parliamentarian whose responsibility shall include to advise the board chairperson accordingly. It says something, and at the same time, it does not say a lot, which is deliberate to keep it vague. It's pretty much that the board chairperson may appoint, meaning he could choose not to appoint a parliamentarian. Let's say there's a different board chair, and then that parliamentarian's responsibility shall include, which means it could be anything in addition to this, but the one we want is to primarily advise the board chairperson. And I put the word accordingly, meaning whenever the board chairperson makes a request, or depending on what the request is once made. So
go ahead.
Okay.
Go, George.
No, I was going to say, does your definition or does the other definitions we have in the officers section cover the fact that whoever this parliamentarian is needs to be a board member, needs to be an appointed board member?
No.
But it should be.
It should be, yeah. That's what. So, do we need to say that the board chairperson may appoint another board
Member to
person?
be the parliamentarian. I like
Yeah,
that.
Yes. So we can say the board chairperson may appoint a parliamentarian who shall be a board member, comma,
Okay.
and whose responsibility shall include blah, blah, blah.
But
Okay.
you should put a board member in good standing.
See, I don't want to put all of that in there. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're going to appoint someone, you're not going to choose someone who's not in good standing.
Well, you never know with some of the chairs we have.
Well, I mean, you can appoint them when they are in good standing, and then they can become not in good standing.
But that brings us to a different point. If you're appointing someone, how do you remove someone? I think we might need a sub bullet or a sub paragraph on removing, or if we get to that, the article on
The
removing.
chair, the chair can remove, like for instance, the chair can appoint committee chairs and remove committee chairs. So that's at the discretion of the chair of the board.
So you can,
Okay.
you can appoint a parliamentarian and you can delete one.
Right, just
wait,
like your committee chairs can ask for members not to serve on their committee anymore if they're not showing up. You know what I mean, Harry?
But isn't
So
there some handy phrase like, and shall serve at the pleasure of the chairperson or something?
Those words seem pretty decent.
Yeah, I would go for that.
Okay.
The board chairperson may appoint a parliamentarian. How did you say that, Harry? Is who shall be a board member?
Yes, who shall be a board member and whose responsibility shall include to advise the board chairperson accordingly.
And I guess the only other stipulation will serve at the pleasure of the.
I'm just about to type something in as to that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. So are we still talking about moving this to Article 4, Section 9?
No, I think we put this, if I'm not mistaken, and if I hear from everybody, we actually put this under the chairperson's role.
Yeah, that's where it is in community board too.
Yeah, that's it.
I think it works.
So, Carla, we would put this in Article 5, Section 6, the chairperson.
Okay, I see that. Okay, so Article 5, Section 6, okay.
Yes, it should just add that language to the end of the paragraph. It'll be 2 sentences. And then we can vote on it. Our rules just say we don't even have to vote on it tonight, right? We can just bring it to the board and see what the board thinks.
Well, the committee can vote on it tonight, or we can bring it to the board, like you say, George. Either way, it's going to go to the board.
Okay.
well, I thought, wait. I thought that any recommendation to change the bylaws has to be voted out of committee first before it can go to the board.
Yeah, there's a section on the meeting forum, resolutions passed, and then next steps or something. I don't have it in front of me.
You can't just.
Yeah, I'm looking for it now.
I think we can. Sorry, I interrupted someone again.
No, I mean that was George. I don't think you can. That was George, but I don't think you can change the bylaws without it coming out of the bylaws committee first, because it's a recommendation from the bylaws committee.
So it's Article 9, Section 1.
But don't we need to vote to say the next steps? The committee agreed that the next steps will be to produce a new draft and present it to the general board meeting, on such and such a date. Like, don't we have to say we agreed on next steps that?
Oh, this is the rule. I'm going to read it. It's Article 9, Amendment, Section 1, page 13, just for if anybody's following. Any member of the board may propose an amendment to the bylaws. The proposed amendment, so what we're changing now, shall be submitted in writing to the chairperson, Michael, who will present it at the next meeting of the board, but no vote shall be taken at the meeting. The proposed amendment shall then be placed on the agenda of the following meeting of the board and shall become an amendment to these bylaws upon its approval by a majority of the appointed members of the board present and voting. So we can't even vote on it at this meeting. We can put it, it should be submitted in writing. Well, we did that already a long time ago, not for this particular rule, but for the corresponding and recording secretary. So the parliamentarian, that can be added, but it basically what it's saying is that we should put it on the agenda and then let it age for another meeting so we could vote on it in February.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, what we could do, we could vote on it tonight, the committee, approve it, and send it to and present it to the board meeting on the 28th for a vote to be taken in February.
Okay. But that's for the parliamentarian. I think we're good on the recording and corresponding because we've been doing that for quite some time now.
Yes, just not in an official way, but that was just old-fashioned teamwork with me and Judy. Okay, so the next steps then is I'm going to try and read all my notes from tonight's conversation. I'm going to produce a new draft and then present it back to the committee and to Dr. Brooke.
Well, wait a minute,
Right?
Carla.
Did I
Isn't
get
that
that
too
right?
much work? Wait. Aren't you doing too much work? I think from what, so let me make sure I'm hearing this correctly. As far as recording and the recording and corresponding secretary, I think we're good. Right? Okay. So what are you rewriting?
She would need to submit to you. Carla was going to take Harry's language on the parliamentarian to add it to Section 5. Article 5, and under the chairperson's definition, submit it in writing to you, the chairperson. You can present it to the board. You can put it on the agenda. It doesn't say that you have to, but I don't know how you present it otherwise unless you read it. But the proposed amendment shall be placed on the agenda, and then basically it's like an aging process. We just wait until February. We can have another meeting of the committee, the bylaws committee, in February to see if there's any discussion that needs to be had on the parliamentarian. But if everybody's in agreement, then we can vote on it.
Well, actually, what I think we can do. So let me. So I know what I'm doing. So I think at the meeting next week, we vote on the language for corresponding and recording secretary, right? That's part one. Part two, we present the language for parliamentarian, and I think at that time, I can ask if there are going to be any questions. And if there are going to be questions, then the bylaws committee can meet in February. If not, then we just have a vote in February.
Yeah. That's fine. But just so that we're clear on the corresponding, we still need the language defining the responsibilities of each. So the recording secretary has Section 9, the correspondence, or vice versa, the corresponding secretary has Section 10. And then
I can't recall a screen right now. So has that not been done?
No.
Okay. So that needs to be done now.
So I drafted the language, but the numbering has to be fixed. It's all messed up because in the 2000 version of the bylaws, there were 2 Section 10s.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So that's sort of messed
but
up.
Right now, the definition that you gave to us for corresponding secretary were both under Section 9. And remember, the concern was one was being subservient to the other. So we're creating 2 equal positions. The corresponding secretary, the recording secretary, they both have different responsibilities, and that's it. And like I said, if you want, you can add, we can just make this longer section. So it'll be Section 9, Section 10. Section 9 and Section 10 will both be secretaries defined one way. Section 10 then becomes the treasurer. Section 11 becomes the parliamentarian. And then Section 12 becomes the last statement, which is all other officers shall have such powers and perform such duties as may be assigned to them by the chairperson of the board.
Right.
That'll be Section 12. But right now, what you submitted just needs to be, parsed out a little more.
Okay. So now, before we meet next week, just because I have 2 pages of notes, who can I ask to just do a review of the language so that I don't present something where I might have I mean, I write really fast, but I would just like somebody else to eyeball this. Can I?
Well, you know what? That's why we have an attorney on Community Board 12. Thank you, Jesus.
I'll do it.
Oh, hallelujah.
Well, I was going to say, can you copy the chat, Carla? Because I can copy it and email it to you as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I already copied and pasted it because
Okay.
one day I couldn't find the chat after the meeting ended, so I've been copying and pasting. So I think I got it all.
I will eyeball it for you. I don't know that I'm on your mailing list though.
Oh, you put that in the chat once, and I snagged it.
Okay.
Yes, I have that. Okay, I'm just gonna write Harry will review next draft of language. Yes, you did publish your email address, and I made sure I snagged that in case I needed your assistance in some of these technical points of language.
That's also my number if you need to reach me faster.
Oh, okay. Let me get that too. Okay. Oh, great. Okay. Thank you, Harry. I'm gonna. Sorry, I can't write and talk at the same time.
Can you chew gum?
I'm trying.
I gave that up after somebody told me it was unladylike. Yes, I used to chew gum like a fiend the first time I quit smoking.
I'll chew for you, Carla. They can't accuse me of being unladylike.
Okay, yeah, that was a favorite comment of my dad's. Can you chew gum and walk at the same time? He was sort of a.
All right. Actually, Carla, you did it already. So the only thing you didn't do on your mock-up, you have section 9. The sentence that begins the recording secretary, you just put section 10.
Right. Okay. Split that up. Okay. And then fix
Yeah.
the numbering because there were 2 section 10s. So at some point I lost.
You did it here. You did so because you have section 11, new section. You wrote the parliamentarian. The only thing is, we're going to this sentence is actually going to go under the chairman's section, right? Or am I
Okay. Wait. So section 11.
Is going to be to the chairperson's role. That's going to be at the end of the chairperson. That's Article 5, number 6, section 6.
Okay.
So your section 12 here becomes section 11, and then we're good, right?
I think so. I think I followed that.
Yeah, because you did it already. Yeah, section 9 is already, and like I said, but just the only thing I would say, Harry's going to look at the language, so I think we'll be fine. I lost it. But I think you did it already.
Can I ask one question? We're talking about the 2 secretaries. Can we just do is there an issue if we do section 9A and B rather than do section 9 for one secretary and then a different section for a different secretary when they kind of overlap and intersect? Because I think corresponding has to aid the recording. I mean,
I don't have
to do one or the other. I'm just throwing out a suggestion there.
Why can't we do A and B? I don't see why not.
Well, we can do 9A and 9B, and then 10.
Well, so listen, my understanding of the reason we were creating this is because whoever's responsible for doing the minutes also had to be responsible for recording the votes and all this other stuff. I can understand creating a 9A and a 9B, but if you're creating two different positions, although they share the secretary name, it's still two different. Like the treasurer is not a subset of the
Okay.
yeah, like these are. I'm trying to create
Yeah,
equal
All right.
positions. Yeah,
We can do 9.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And just in general, I was trying to keep the new language consistent with the previous, because we're amending an earlier version. We're not creating a new one. And there's only one place that I remember there was an ABC, and that was under, I think, removal. Here are like the 5 reasons you can be removed. Everything else is like a separate section.
Yeah. I mean, it's just Harry, for example, Section 7 and Section 8 are the first and second vice chairs. Even though they share many of the same attributes, they just move up if somebody's missing, for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say the same thing with the secretaries. It should be Section 9, Section 10. And then Section 11 would be the treasurer, and then Section 12 would be the last sentence, because we do have 2 Section 10s. I got to fit it back
Right.
here.
Okay, so George, can I ask you one last question, just
Sure.
in terms of people covering for a secretary?
Yeah.
So, anytime, well, our secretary, when we had, when we had just one, was absent, I would ask Judy to step in, because
Yeah.
I didn't feel up to doing both, taking notes and doing roll call.
Yeah,
So I remember, so where is it okay, according to, the civil service rules, to ask Ursula to step in, and where is it not allowed? Because I have this recollection that Carmen Rosa told me you can't ask a city employee to do board minutes. So if we're short one secretary, what is it okay to ask Ursula to step in and cover, and what is not okay?
Well, I don't know, to tell you to be the God's honest truth, is I don't know that you can't ask one of us, even myself, to do the minutes. But the board meetings are run by you guys. We're not, we don't have a vote. We don't, we may, and I do try to, I guess, advise in certain ways, but these the minutes are a report of the board. Ursula's not a board member, so somebody has to sign off on these, and I guess you can sign off on them even though you didn't write it and Ursula wrote it, but I don't know. I'll look for it. I'll look if there is such a thing.
Yeah, it was something Carmen had told me. It's just, it really is difficult. One night years ago, I tried to do both, and doing the roll call and determining the outcome of the vote is way harder than people think, because you have to watch, well, in the old days, watch the door, who left, right? Because your denominator changes. People come in, people leave. Like, you can't be heads down taking notes and knowing 10 minutes ago I had 23 people, now I only have 19. Do you know what I mean? It's like throughout the duration of a meeting, what your quorum or what your 51% is changes. So you really need one person to really monitor that.
It's understood. When we were meeting in person, I think I took up some of that role. Because I would tell you, board, when we did have quorum, I'd always give a hands up, that we're just missing 1 or 2 people in order to have quorum. So I do know that it's difficult. I'll look for the rule, but again, this is this is supposed to be a citizen, advisory board and stuff, and you guys need to own that stuff. And again, this for me, this is about personal responsibility as well. There are people who are chairs, for example, that should not be chairs because they're incapable of running meetings. It's not a reflection of them individually that I think that they're just bad. That's not the case at all. It's just they're not necessarily good chairs. So, and again, but when you have 17 different committees, you kind of need bodies. So, we have right now, and again, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, and this is where, if we had a parliamentarian, and technically we do, and Carl is the chair of 2 committees, which is against our bylaws. So are you, Carla. So, are we going to follow our own rules, or are we not going to follow our own rules?
Well, so technically, bylaws is it's ad hoc. So I've been trying to put this to bed for months,
but you're not the chair of bylaws.
Huh?
You're the chair of the legislative committee, and you're the chair of the sanitation committee. Carl is the chair of the land use committee.
I was removed from environmental concerns. I think that was combined.
There's nothing combined. It's not. We haven't changed our bylaws, Carla.
Wait. She's not a chair of 2 committees, though, George.
What is she? Who's the chair of the sanitation committee?
That's supposed to be Alfredo, supposedly.
No, Alfredo's the chair of public affairs.
No,
right.
Wait.
Well, public safety and sanitation is supposed to be one committee.
It's not. It's 2 distinct committees according to our bylaws. Carla is still the chair of our sanitation and environmental control.
Because we didn't vote on it.
Well, it's not even a question of voting on it. Yes, that's right. You didn't change anything. That's, again, we're supposed to be responsible for ourselves. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 committees. Plus we have 4 or 5 ad hoc committees. Again, people filling double duties. Yeah. No, we're at like 17. So when you don't have a participatory board, you have people who are doubling up. Carla, you have environmental concerns. Right above environmental concerns is the public safety committee. That is, right now I have executive, Michael Burke, libraries and cultural affairs, Joan Claude, transportation and capital projects is John Isaac, health and human services is Carl Lanzano, housing is Robert Hall, land use is Carl Stricker, public safety is Alfredo, environmental concerns is Carla Basadi, youth services and education, you just changed to Tolene, but that used to be Anthony Reed. Parks and Recreation is Ivan, and Economic Development, again, used to be Felix. It's now Judith Benitez. Those are the 13 committees. Those are the 11 standing committees that we have. Anything else is ad hoc.
Right. So let me jump in. So right now, George, I've redone this, and so I do not have. And that's why I got to get this out probably now tomorrow. So I'm looking at my computer right now, and I could share it, but I'm not going to. So what I have listed is following. I have outside of the executive committee, I've got economic development with Mrs. Benitez as the chairperson, and she just told me who she wanted me to invite, which would be Mr. Abdul. I've got health and human services, where I've got Mr. Lanzano as a chairperson. I've got housing. I've got land use. I've got library and cultural affairs. I've got parks. I've got public safety, transportation, and youth services and education. So those are the committees that I said I'm looking at right now that I have that I will get to everybody because tomorrow, first thing in the morning.
Yes. So I really thought I was retired.
I need to mention one other thing too. So the 4 people who I have without committees, two of whom we're going to be voting to kick out. One is Evelyn Christian. The other one is Robert Cumberbatch. So I've got letters going to those 2. The other 2, one is a new member, Shaniqua Moore, who of course she tried to assign herself to a committee that doesn't really need her. And then of course the Chantel Green. Those are the only 4 members without a committee. And as I said, 2 of them, along with Mary McLeod, will be getting a letter for removal from the board. So that's, so I just want to so George, I made some adjustments over the Christmas holidays that that need to get out to everybody.
I understand,
Okay,
and I don't want to beat a dead horse. We exist by our bylaws. You have 11 committees. So whatever you say, Michael, I completely understand. The only discretion you have as the chair is to appoint the chair people and the vice chairs. You don't have the right to automatically say we're not going to do that committee. That if you want to undo a committee, you have to purge it from the bylaws. So again, we have 11 committees. You may think that environmental concerns doesn't exist. It exists. Carla is the chair. And in addition to those, we had 4 additional committees. We have legislative affairs, bylaws, and we have the non-for-profit committee. And I don't know if we're missing anything. But you had Joan Claude earlier say that she's teaming up with Toba to create veteran affairs. I mean, I have no idea why Libraries is doing that, but here we are. And now we're creating a parliamentarian position and creating an extra. We're creating.
So let me comment on that.
Again,
we're not creating a Veterans Affairs Committee.
yeah, so I really thought I was retired from environmental concerns.
And so did I. So we need to, obviously, so I'm trying to find my bylaws.
The question becomes, why would you think that?
Because I saw it on a list saying
we've had this conversation before about dual citizenship of committees.
Right.
No, because I thought environmental.
Right. So let me jump in. So when I joined the board, if Parks and Environmental Concerns were meeting together, right, and that's when I started.
Not all the time, but they were meeting. Yes.
Right. So they were meeting together at the same time. Same thing with transportation and capital projects, right? So those were 2.
That's one committee.
Right. So that was that organization was taking place before when I joined the board. So therefore, what wound up happening was, as Carla had some things to deal with, and so Ivan took over that committee. You know what I mean? And then, of course, and George, as you know this, then of course, the legislative committee came about, in which Dr. Hall then assigned that to Carla, right? So the mantle of environmental affairs was supposed to be taken up by Ivan. Now, it just so happens that Denise Bond, I've been, she's been, wanting to get more involved in that end. But if we need to, quote unquote, eliminate that committee, then because there are a couple of committees that we need to eliminate, truth be told. So if we need to call that to a board, looking at my bylaws,
yet here we are. We've spent almost 6 months talking about the recording secretary. Again, we have the power within ourselves to do the right thing, and yet we keep diddling around with this stuff. I'm just putting it out.
George, I wouldn't call it diddling around. I would.
What do you call spending 8 months? We were doing this in the pandemic. We are now we're heading towards February, and we still haven't figured this out. And we're now, in addition to this, we're adding another position. We're adding a parliamentarian position, which again, Dr. Burke, you say you're not doing these things in secret. You're doing them in secret. You're having these conversations with folks and you're not letting the board know, oh yeah, I did away with the Environmental Concern Committee. You didn't. You didn't do any of these things. Again, it's 9:49 on a Tuesday. I have 3 more days of these committee meetings this week plus next week. So does Ursula. So does everybody here. Stop it already. Stop it. Just stop it. We're fine with one secretary. We don't need a parliamentarian. If you want to add it, fine. I mean, I don't want to be the guy that continues to do this because I'm a nice guy. I really am. I like to have fun. I like the board to do stuff. But here we are having this conversation again for the 6th time.
All right. So first of all, so you're getting mad and I'm starting to get pissed off because it has not been 6 months since we've been doing this. That's the first thing. Second thing is that as it pertains to that committee, it has not been done in secret. So I think at this point, because before I say something I shouldn't, we probably need to get the hell off of here, because like I said, that's a bunch of BS that you just said. Is in no way, shape, or form that we sit up here and spend that much time on the corresponding recording secretaries.
But see, I think this is the problem, Michael. And listen, this is the problem. You say that, oh, I don't want to say something. This is not personal against you, Michael.
It's not personal.
We're not friends. We're not hanging out. This is not, I'm trying to tell you to follow the bylaws, and you're having a problem with that.
No, you're wrong.
No. Okay, wait. Can I just say something here?
Go ahead, Carla.
We thought we would be done with bylaws much sooner, but George, I think you were one of the people who told me we have all these new board members. We need to include them, so we need to have some extra meetings so they understand what's going on.
You really, Carla, I've said the opposite. I mean, even Michael will tell you that I've asked for 4 committees. I've made very specific in reports to the full board my vision for the community board.
Right, that's a separate topic, though. We've extended.
It's this topic.
No.
We're talking about this right now. You guys seem to be conflating the issues. Again, we're still operating with you being the chair of 2 committees, Carl Stricker being the chair of 2 committees for multiple months. You can say it wasn't 6 months. We have minutes to prove it. We have recordings now to prove it. Again, everything is recorded, but you may not think that you're doing it because you're having these private conversations, but that's not the case. We've been doing this for quite some time.
No, but I thought I was taking your feedback on board when you said slow down on bylaws to make sure that we're making sure all the new board members are on board. So I did that. You cannot attribute that conversation because we've never had that conversation. You may have had that conversation with Dr. Burke because that is something that Dr. Burke has said in the past in public meetings, that he needs to involve the newer board members. But you haven't had that with me, so don't attribute that to me. I could be confused.
My point has always been contraction. Do less and do more with less.
Okay, well, I think we're moving out of scope for this meeting, so I'm going to move that we adjourn this meeting at...
You have to have that come from the floor, Carla.
Oh, sorry, overstepping again.
Well, I'm the chair. She can recommend.
There you go.
I can't recommend to shut the meeting down, but she can.
Okay, well, there you go. That's why you're the parliamentarian. Okay, so you moved at the meetings. Okay.
Because I think we're getting into other ground that's meant for another meeing.
So make your motion, Paula.
Okay, I'm moving that we close the meeting at 9:55. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that Harry?
No, it's me.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Meeting
Okay.
closed at
Yes,
9:54.
George, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think we've moved into new territory, and I have to start getting this stuff down for the bylaws committee so we can finally shut it down as an ad hoc
That's
committee.
completely fine. That's completely fine.
Everybody have a blessed night.
Good night.
Yes, well, thank you, everyone, for all your input. And thank you, Harry, for your offer to look at the next draft, because I have a lot of notes.
Harry,
Okay.
you're a godsend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
take care,
Okay,
everybody.
okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.